Hi everyone. Welcome back to Detour Ahead. We've managed to get through the day unscathed without any kind of major technical issues, which is really great. We've got Rebecca Moodie with us, who's going to cover, I guess, enterprise and sort of the bigger picture of how to become a creative and actually be successful from the business perspective, which is always a session which is really welcomed by the students, I think. And I think many people in the creative industry often go out into be self-employed and start up small startups and think of, be entrepreneurial. And these kind of skills are things that I think you can pick up along the way. You don't need to become an expert necessarily, but you have an idea of how these things work, and it demystifies and sort of maybe starts to sort of manage the expectation. I think when you say to someone, can you do your self-assessment, they freak out, but actually these kind of things, you build up to it slowly. So I welcome Rebecca. Thanks for coming and joining us.
No worries. Thank you everyone for having me and for staying on till 4 o'clock. Apologies that I can't be with you in person, but I will be on campus over the next couple of weeks. I hope to see you all in person. So yeah, this slide that's up now, everyone has a story. For anyone that's looking to embark on an entrepreneurial career at all, you're going to have to get used to telling your story on the flip of a hat. And my role at UEL, I am head of careers, enterprise and mentoring. But my background is in entrepreneurship, and I've spent the past 10, 20 years within the entrepreneurship space, running my own business and supporting entrepreneurs. So for today, I guess I'm kind of taking my UEL hat off, and I will be referring to snippets from personal anecdotes specifically related to some of the topics that we're going to talk about today. I guess before I start, my disclaimer is one of the main focuses is I'm going to focus on is incorporating and tax and national insurance, which is a pretty dry subject, but I'll try and bring it to life. But actually, my disclaimer here is that I am not a tax advisor. I do not work for HMRC. I never have. My experience with tax and national insurance is actually how not to do it, and definitely what can go wrong in that arena. And actually my learning from that was to upskill myself as much as possible and pass on that message to aspiring entrepreneurs to make sure people don't end up in the situation I did. So I'm not a tax advisor. I will try and ask your questions as much as possible, or definitely direct you where to go to. And yeah, I'm really, I'm going to use this session to kind of be as honest as possible about the realities of self-employment, and as well as focus on that specifics on how you can kind of set up. So yeah, definitely recommend anyone looking to go into entrepreneurship or set themselves up as a freelancer or self-employed to get used to telling their story. I'll give you a very quick brief overview of my background. I was perhaps not had the most traditional education in that I didn't engage with school. I didn't like school very much. I think I wanted to be a nurse when I was younger, and yeah, I found that I didn't find school very relevant, I guess. But during my final years of education, I definitely had some teachers who said, you need to turn this around. So I did go to university, study social sciences because I was really interested in helping people, but didn't have a clue what I wanted to go on to do. And I interned in my first summer of university with a charity that were looking to stimulate entrepreneurship and projects with young people. And during that time, I was tasked with kind of helping people come up with ideas, because actually it wasn't, we were struggling to get applications for this particular pot of money. And that research alone led to me setting up my first business, which was an innovation consultancy. So I went and delivered innovation methodology into charities and corporates, some big names. I had a national contract with the FA. And did pretty well, actually. So I stumbled upon entrepreneurship. I was fortunate to get my first contract before I'd even set up a business, completely fell into the sector and fell in love with it, really. And I've been involved with entrepreneurship ever since. dabbling in different businesses, some of which have gone right, some of which have gone wrong. Currently involved in a health tech startup that's raising finance. Done some, I've been involved with a construction business. I've had businesses that have gone wrong after the first month. So quite a broad experience in entrepreneurship. And I also spent a long time working for the Prince's Trust, and have supported about 1,000 young people to start businesses from different sectors. So I'm a bit of a dabbler of everything. So hopefully I'll be able to kind of answer your questions and help as much as possible throughout this session. So why are we here? I came to UEL really to understand what was happening in universities. When I worked in the charity sector, we had lots of young people who had been to university coming to the Prince's Trust saying, I need help to start a business. I've just graduated. I don't know what I'm doing and how I can get there. So, everyone is at university, I guess, for that next step, to help you progress onto that next step and to pursue a sector or an area that they love and turn that into potentially a career. And that a career can look different for different people. This is the really old school traditional career. This is what my most people are familiar with, and what my parents would say is, you leave school, you leave university, you get one job, you stay there for 40 years, and then you retire. Actually, for our generation and future generations, that looks really different. It looks something a little bit more like this, where you might get involved in education, you might do some internships, you might work on lots of projects. People are adopting much more portfolio-based career, engaging in traveling and studying. The opportunities that are available to us now are so much more broad, and it is predicted that people will change careers 3 or 4 times during that tenure. So it's very unusual now to see someone stay with an organization for a long time. And in fact, I've been at UEL 4 years, and in UEL terms, that's a long time. People recognize me as being here quite a while, which traditionally wouldn't have been the case. And this is reflected, I guess, in a shift in the workforce, in that by 2020, and I guess that was a couple of years ago, people per hour predicted that 50% of the workforce would be freelance. So actually, for all of you sitting here today, probably half of you in the room won't go on to a traditional employment route, and actually that 50% is higher amongst creatives. So potentially quite a few of you in the room and your fellow peers will be following a more portfolio freelancing career. So what does that mean? It means that you're more like, you're, rather than being an employee, you're more likely to self-identify as a consultant or a contractor or a side hustler, a creative, freelancer, independent professional. There is quite a lot of terminology around this, but essentially you are more likely to work for yourself, to operate as an individual and pursue your passion and turn that into potential income or revenue. So I guess just in thinking about that, I would love for you just to take a minute to think about what makes you remarkable. What's that something that you could turn into an independent professional career, or turn into a potential income for yourself? What's something that you could pursue? If I was in the room, I'd love to hear, but I'm happy for people to for people to shout out and connect on that if anyone wants to share.
So I'm just adding those guys in. So if there's any questions, they can. I think there's a mic in the room. It might be being shy, of course.
Yeah. Don't want to stream that aspirations. People always tell me, once you tell people what you want to do, then you have to do it. So that's the risk.
Oh man, maybe that's a good way of setting your goal there.
It is. Well, because the next time, if I see you walking through the corridors of UEL, I'll say, oh, how's that going?
guess it's the same logic with a 5-year plan. At least you've got somewhere to target. Okay, I reckon we're being shy, so
no worries. No worries. So yeah, I guess I've put this little diagram in to start to get you to think about that. But the kind of crux and the sweet spot of entrepreneurship is finding something that you're good at, you're pretty good at, you've got some skills in. You don't necessarily need to be, have 10, 20 years experience in that. Certainly when I went into the innovation field, I had 0 experience. I had some research and a bit of knowledge behind me, but I don't have any qualifications in that. And similarly, I'm sitting here and I have no qualifications in entrepreneurship either. But I have developed quite a successful career out of my experience. So it doesn't necessarily have to be expertise in that but it does have to be some kind of skills or knowledge. And then it needs to be something that you genuinely love and you're passionate about. I hope that shows through what I'm talking about today, but genuinely, I really love what I do. And actually, I in my spare time, I mentor businesses. In my spare time, I take part in competitions. I was up till 3 a.m. the other week looking at applications for the Royal Academy for Engineering, and my partner said, "What on earth are you doing?" But it's because I genuinely love the space that I'm in. So I think it's finding that, and that's hard to do, but when you do find something that you don't mind staying up till 3 a.m. for, I think you found that passion, and something that can create value and revenue. And if you can combine those 3, that section in the middle, that's what you charge for, and that's that sweet spot of entrepreneurship. And I guess if I can pass on anything from supporting independent professionals and supporting entrepreneurs where one of those components is missing, it is really difficult to kind of really make a success and drive that business forward. And I think particularly the passion. So for those of you that are thinking about going into setting up as an independent professional or a freelancer, really connect with, is this something that will get you up every single day in the morning and keep you up and kind of pursue you through that, because it's something you are absolutely going to have to drive. And I think that's the difference between that traditional employment and being self-employed, is that you are driving that forward, and it's you that really defines that success and where that goes. Where on earth do you start? So if you found that sweet spot, you found something that you think might have a value, that you've got some skills in and that you're really passionate about, that starts to form this little bubble of an idea. I guess there's 3 areas, and this is kind of a little bit of a take on the human-centered design diagram. The 3 areas that you need to define if you've got your little idea is it desirable? Is it desirable? Is it viable? And is it feasible? And within the freelancing space, the desirability, I guess, is step 1. And this is really evidencing that your offer, skill, passion, or idea is something that someone else wants and someone else thinks it's a good idea. And on top of that, that it's something people are willing to pay for. I see a lot of creatives doing lots of amazing stuff for their friends and family, unpaid to develop their portfolio. And and there's definitely merit in that. There's definitely merit in taking on unpaid work to develop a portfolio, but it needs to reach a point where people do start paying for that and people start paying for its worth. And I think often creatives that start off on that journey of doing things at a low price or even free really find that shift into translating that into paid work can be really difficult. And I've seen that a lot of times with UEL students and graduates. So I think right from the word go, try and establish that people will pay for this, and that people beyond your friends and family want this and are willing to pay for it. And you can do that through kind of market research and identifying exactly who that customer is, so who you think that customer is, and then testing that methodology. And I've put a couple of art images in here. On the left, you've got an Andy Warhol print, which is at the Tate Modern, and then on the right hand side you've got a more traditional piece of art which is at the Tate Britain. So if you're going off to your art gallery, is your customer someone that's going to go to the the Tate Modern or the Tate Britain? You need to be that specific to really understand who that individual is. And within the creative industries, there are a cohort of you all doing graphic design, all doing fine art, all studying the same thing, all acquiring similar levels of skills, but you'll all be acquiring your own niches, your own specialisms, putting your own personal take on that, defined by your life experiences. So you're not just a graphic designer. You might be a graphic designer that produces really modern pieces, or more traditional, or you might want to align yourself to corporate or to SMEs. So it's about really defining who this is for, and then connecting, is this something that they want? That's your desirability. The second is your feasibility. So you've got your idea, you've evidenced that, yeah, there's people that want this and will pay for it. And then the feasibility is, how do you actually have the knowledge, expertise, and resources available to you to translate that into action, I guess. And some of that is portfolio. So to get those early pieces of work, you are going to have some kind of portfolio. And I know you spend a huge amount of time on this within your curriculum and within your discipline area. So I know that UEL students are well equipped with a portfolio when they look to graduate. And it's something that you can develop whilst you're a student as well. Your network. So your network that you're developing now amongst your peers is a really valid network moving forward, but also with that much wider cross university culture. So as much as you can get involved with other schools, other disciplines, and start making these people part of your network, that will be fruitful in future years to come, as well as connecting with potential employers and potential people that might translate into customers. What resources are you going to need? What finance are you going to need? I'm going to touch upon it at the end, but there is, as a student, you can apply for funding to help you become a freelancer or an entrepreneur. So tap into the resources that you have available to you while you're a student or recent graduate, because once you graduate, it's much harder to get stuff for free. It's much harder to access money. So connect to the resources that you have already. In terms of, I've put a couple of websites on here, like Freelancer UK, Upwork, Fiverr, The Dots. These are a few sites where you can start to acquire work within the creative sectors, where you can start to develop a creative network and portfolio. So if you're not aware of them, I definitely recommend them and check them out. And then the final step is it viable? So are you going to make money from it? Does it cost you less than what you're going to make and what you're going to charge and what people are going to buy your product or service for? This is obviously something you can test. I'm going to go through a little bit about pricing. I think the really common pitfall here is often people don't include their own time in their financials. So they think, yep, I'm going to charge 500 quid for that piece of work. And apart from their resources that they use, they consider that pure profit. But actually, as a freelancer and independent professional, you are the business, and your time is your most costly and your most valuable asset. So you do need to make sure that you are considering your own time and your own pay within that. When I was running my consultancy business, we grew quite quickly and I had staff. And I often was paying my staff and not paying myself. So actually, and there's merit to that in terms of growing your business. But actually, if I wasn't paying myself, that was kind of hiding a significant cost that would have been associated with the business longer term. And actually, I was, pretty struggling a lot and actually trying to work in the evenings and work at weekends to make up the money, whereas people that I was employing were earning pretty good money. So actually I made that really common mistake of kind of not including myself in the business in my first few years, and you will learn hard from that if you do that. So that's a bit of something to pass on in this early stage. This is a really great tool. I'm not going to go through it in huge amounts of detail, but This is a great tool for helping those of you with, you know, an intention or a goal, like I want to set myself up as a graphic designer, or I want to, you know, become a consultant or whatever. This is a great tool to just help you start to take that fledgling idea and get it down on paper. This is a one-page kind of business plan, business model. And it helps you just map out, do you have a business? Like, have you thought about all of the components to turn this ambition into something that's kind of a viable career? You, on the right hand side, I guess we've already spoke about, you've got your customer segments here. So who are you targeting? Who is it actually for? Right in the middle, your value proposition. This is like what makes you different. What value are you bringing to the market? Why would someone come to you over someone else? Your channels are your kind of platforms or routes to market. So how will you reach those customers? Will you have a web platform? Will you use some of those common freelancing sites like Upwork or Fiverr? Will you entirely use like Instagram and social media? And customer relationships is how you then connect and keep those customers. So what does that relationship between you and the customer look like once you've reached them through your channel? On the right hand side, you've got key partners. So, you know, is there anyone particular or any partners that you need to make that happen? And then the two boxes in the middle are key activities. So what do you actually do? What is your proposition? What is your product or service that you want to develop? Key resources, actually what physically do you need to make this happen? So do you need a platform? Do you need a piece of software? Do you need a piece of machinery? Do you need an office? What things do you need that are fundamental to you getting started? And they then help you identify what the costs of running the business and starting the business will be. You know, often people think that as freelancer, you know, it's pretty quick and easy just to set up. And in reality, that's true. But actually within the creative industries, often you do require access to equipment and software, which actually can be quite expensive. And again, once you look towards graduating, you know, all of that software and all of that equipment that you had access to as a student, you suddenly don't have access to. So you need to think about whether you need to invest in that or where you would access that type of resource, if that is a fundamental requirement for your business. And then revenue streams, how do you make money? And what do you charge, and all of that money coming in. I will share this resource with you. And yeah, I would highly recommend kind of anyone that has got this aspiration or this intention to start to translate it into this document, and it will help you identify any gaps. You know, it's not, you don't need to go as far as having a business plan. Most people write business plans, never read them ever again. I wrote loads of business plans and didn't use them, but actually this document here is something that entrepreneurs use now and now again, and revisit all the time during their business journey as they pivot and change and put new services or new customer segments come into play. Okay, I'm just going to break there just for any questions before I go on to the super riveting legal side of kind of actually physically setting up, and a little bit about the tax and kind of national insurance implications. I just want to check if there's any questions on that kind of more kind of introduction to thinking about getting started. No.
Not much movement.
Not an issue. Cool. I will carry on. So this next section, I guess the final, you know, half hour of this is really focused on the legal side of setting up, and then the tax and national insurance. And it is, yeah, it's pretty, I guess if you're not in this sector, it can feel pretty overwhelming, and I've tried to keep it at a light level of detail, but also detailed enough so that you do understand the early stages of what this means and what the implications mean, and the difference between being self-employed and being employed. So what action takes place for your business or your freelancing career to start? Often people kind of ask me, well, you have two trains of thought. Some people register as soon as they have the idea. And some people think that you don't need to register until, you are earning a certain amount of money or until you get your first customer. So people are at two ends of the spectrum. Some people register way too late and some people register way too early. But in order for your business to start, I guess, according to HMRC, they consider, the point where you need to start when you start advertising. So when you start actively giving out a business card, advertising your services on your own web platform or another platform, or actually starting to actively pursue and seek clients and business, is when you should register. And that's, because you've got the intention to start trading. Technically, you could get a customer the same day or the next day. In reality, that rarely happens. It rarely happens that you'd get a customer so soon. So there is a leeway period. You've got a grace period of kind of up to 6 months to kind of retrospectively register, I guess. But really, from a kind of professional stance, as soon as you start actively pursuing business, you should think about registering yourself as an independent professional. When you look at registering yourself, you have to make a decision about what structure or kind of what format you're going to register your business within. The most simple and quickest way to register is to register as a sole trader or self-employed. And I guess for definitely in the early stages, this is the quickest and simplest way to register, the easiest way to kind of test your business, get started. If you're not quite sure what's going to happen, kind of it's the best structure to go with, and it's the simplest. This is, your freelancers, your giggers. It's called being a sole trader or self-employed, but it, is called all those different things like consultancy and freelancing. You register with HMRC direct. You can do it online, you can do it on a paper form that you send off, or you can do it over the phone. But obviously the preference is for online, and it's a fairly quick way to register. And once you register, you will get a 10-digit code, which is a UTR code, and this is your unique tax reference. So this is your, I guess, a little bit like your payroll number or a little bit like your student number. This is your unique reference that HMRC have for you and your business activity. So when you get that code, just make sure you keep that safe. And you'll also be enrolled into the self-assessment system, and that's how you pay your tax and that's your insurance when you're self-employed. So that's a bit like your payroll system. And when you register into that system, you will get like a government gateway code, which again, keep hold of that because that's how you log in to all of the HMRC system. So when you register, all the codes that you get, so your reference, your government login, just make sure you keep hold of those, because if you don't have them, it can be an absolute nightmare to kind of trace those things back. The second is a partnership. So I guess it's the same kind of physical structure as a sole trader, but there is more than one person, so you can register jointly, and you're kind of connecting your business activity. These two structures, you register with HMRC Direct. They're fairly simple. I guess the main disadvantage is that you are the business. There's no separation between you and the business, and therefore you are, personally liable for the activities of the business that you are delivering, because you're representing yourself. And I guess that will make more sense when I just talk about the next structure. This looks super complicated, but the diagram, I hope, explains it. So the third structure, the most common structure, there are others, I'm not going to go through any more, but these are the most common company structures. The third is a limited company. So the main difference between a sole trader and a limited company is, as a limited company, you register a separate legal entity. So a bit like having a child, you kind of birth or you register an entirely new entity that has its own identity and sits separate to you. And in that respect, you are an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, but you work for the company that you've created. Whereas a sole trader, there's no separation. You are the business. You are acting as an independent professional. A limited company, you launch a separate legal entity and you work for that separate legal entity. So it exists in its own right. It costs money to register a limited company, not a huge amount of money. Because you are registering a separate legal entity, it requires its own name. It requires its own address that it, kind of lives or resides at. It has to have a director or kind of an owner of that business, which obviously would be yourself in the first instance. The company, when you incorporate, has a shareholding. So you set the price that, you set the price of your shares when you register and you become that shareholder. And it has its kind of own accounting period. So before you register, you need to define all of those areas. The other difference with a limited company is because you set up a separate legal entity, your personal liability is protected in a sense that your liability is, you are only liable for your initial shareholding in the company. So you have a protection in terms of the company. If the company itself goes into significant amounts of debt, or the company is sued or doesn't pay, its bills or liabilities, the company itself is liable, and you're only liable for your initial first shareholding in that. So your personal assets can't be tapped into, so like your house and your car and all different things like that. Whereas as a sole trader, you are personally liable. So if you go into a lot of debt, or you don't pay your bills or something in terms of the business activity, they can, go after your personal assets and your personal bank account, and, your bailiffs come in and get your TV and all those different things. Whereas with a limited company, they go after the company. And this is where, and then the company is declared bankrupt, but you personally still retain your personal assets that are separate to that company. So I guess that's why limited companies are, a really common form of business, and I guess they're attractive to entrepreneurs because they provide that protection. That said, I hope no one goes into business setting out to be in a position where, they're going to be owing lots of money. That's definitely, hopefully, no one's intention. For you guys where you are, I would recommend registering as a sole trader. I think it's it's the best way to start out. Different personal circumstances. I guess the other thing with a limited company, which probably isn't necessarily relevant here, but if your ambition for the business is to grow, go on and raise capital and get investment, unfortunately, people can't invest in a piece of you or your arm or anything. So a limited company also provides a vehicle for you to raise finance long term, and you can, if anyone watched Dragon's Den or Apprentice, these people invest in companies for a percentage shareholding. So if your ambition or your vision for the business is growth and investment in the kind of short to medium term, you will need to register as a limited company. But these are all kind of ifs, buts, and maybes, I guess, when you get to that point about considering what company structure you're going to come to. The entrepreneurship team at the university are there to obviously give you this support and advice based on your individual circumstances. So I won't go into it in any more detail today, but if there are any questions, you can either ask them in the session, or you can access one-to-one support so that you get that specific kind of, this is the right step for me and my business. Dan, I can't see, all I can see is my slides, but if there are any questions, please let me know, because I'm, obviously really happy to answer them. So I know
sorry. Well, I'm just trying to keep radio silent so that you can see the screen full. But I could just leave the I'll leave the students in and see if they because they can hear. So
yeah, no, I'm if anyone has a question, wants to pop it in the chat, then Dan can ask if people are feeling shy. But I'm aware that these are, we're covering things on a quite theoretical level. But if there are any individual examples in the room where it's more useful to focus on different areas, happy to do that. Pricing. So I'm going to do pricing for a service-based business because a lot of creatives, when they start out, or independents, obviously are selling their time as their main asset. There are different trains of thought in how you price yourself up, and there isn't necessarily a right or wrong way, but this is one model that you can use to kind of give yourself a ballpoint figure about how you price your own personal time. So in terms of thinking about how much you should be kind of charging as an hourly rate, you need to look at it in two ways. You need to look at your own personal survival budget. So how much do you actually need to live? And you also need to look at the market and the competitors and the market that you're entering into, and have an awareness of that market and typically what is paid as a rate within that industry. A way to work out kind of a baseline really as your kind of minimum hourly rate is to think about how many weeks you're going to work in a year, how many days a week you'll work, and how many hours a day. And this gives you the total number of hours available to you to work. In terms of thinking about how many weeks you'll work when you are obviously self-employed, or it's unlikely you might work over Christmas. You need to plan in some time for holidays, and it's not necessarily realistic to work 52 weeks of the year. Also think about trends within your discipline or in your sector. Anyone starting an ice cream business potentially won't be working over the winter months unless they kind of go into events. So some businesses are more seasonal and will have peaks and troughs, and there may be specific trends within the sector that you're going into. How many days a week? Yeah, the same thing. Just think about not just what you want to do, but also what works within the industry and how many hours a day. So you multiply all these together and it will give you these kind of total chargeable hours. And then in addition to that, think about the different costs associated with the business. So total indirect cost. An indirect cost is just kind of the costs associated with starting and running your business. So this might be investment in equipment, marketing, insurance, an accountant. Pull together a full list of all your costs for a year, of what you anticipate your costs for a year about running yourself as a business. And annual personal survival budget. This is like how much you at minimum kind of want to pay yourself on a monthly basis. This is obviously quite low, but look at the market value, and also think about your own personal circumstances as well. Add those two together. So it will give you a roundabout cost that to run your business, including all the costs and paying yourself, costs you about 27 grand a year in this example, and then divide that by the amount of hours you've got available to work. What this gives you, this leads to £19.56 in this particular example, but what this gives you is a minimum hourly rate, so that unless you are charging £19.56 or more per hour, you're not in profit, you're not viable. So if this figure comes out, if this figure came out like £500 an hour, it also helps you think about your viability, and that will someone actually pay £500 an hour? Is this viable? Do I need to go back and look at my costs? Do I need to so it helps you look at the viability as well in the early stages, but it also helps give you a baseline of, at minimum, where you need to be. And when you're actually running yourself as an independent professional, you can run this, you can multiply this and kind of get a bit of a weekly rate, so that when you're planning projects and things like that, if there has been a week you haven't worked, you can kind of know, right, this month I'm not at a kind of break-even point. I know I need to maybe think about getting a bit more work. Or you might have you know, met your budget, you know, in 2 weeks because you've crammed it with lots of work, and also know the periods where right, I'm okay at the moment, let me plan some work in for, you know, a couple of weeks time. So it also can give you a measure about the profitability, so you don't get to the end of the year and think, oh, I've made no money. There are ways that you can kind of overcome that. So that's how you get to that point for a service business. Now, obviously, you wouldn't charge your customer £19.56. You'd then look at the market rate, you'd look at the market value, and you would identify what is being charged within the kind of area that you are looking to go into, based on your kind of level of experience. Some of that isn't always really transparent, but obviously, you know, you can be cheeky and you can do kind of cold calls and kind of, you know, around about what you pay. You can speak to other people who are maybe doing a business that you would like to go into, and play a bit of a dummy call on them, and kind of get a bit of a grasp. There are, even if costs and prices are hidden, there are ways that you can kind of pose as a customer and get to a point where you get a price. I think in this instance, I guess on pricing, that market awareness is really, really important. Often when people go into this space, they think that being the cheapest is the best way to go, and that will get them lots of customers. But actually, market research, you know, can prove that people often go somewhere in the middle. They get 3 different quotes. They don't go with the cheapest. They don't go with the most expensive. They go somewhere in the middle. So if you don't have an awareness of what's standard within your sector, you could lose out on work. And I had exactly the same thing happen to me in my innovation business. I met with Lloyd's TSB, and they were looking for an innovation partner, which would have been quite a significant contract. And I charged, I don't know what I charged, I can't even remember the numbers, but I gave them a figure which I thought was really reasonable. And they said, oh, that's great, Becky, but you know, our budget for innovation is 70 grand a year, and you don't even cover, you know, half of that. So unfortunately, you're too cheap. We're looking for a partner that, you know, would kind of cover our full innovation budget. And I lost the deal because I was too cheap. Which was, you know, a massive learning curve about just knowing your market, knowing your customer. And I was trying to offer too much as a new business. I was, you know, I was like, this is great. This is a corporate partner. So I think really understand your market as much as you can. You can then work out your profit margin from this. So you can look at your hourly rate, then look at what you can charge in terms of a market value, and get yourself to kind of a bit of a margin here, and know how much you're going to kind of get on top of that using this calculation. But I think the most important thing is to just do that, to get that minimum hourly rate, and then work from there about what you can charge. Any questions on pricing before I look at the tax stuff in 15 minutes? Nope, I will keep going. Okay, tax and national insurance. Absolutely don't worry too much about this table. National insurance. So when you are self-employed, you pay tax and national insurance. It's exactly the same when you are employed. So you know, but you just pay different rates. So national insurance is your entitlement to state benefit. So this is, you're entitled to maternity pay, to sick pay, to a pension, all of the government support that we get in the UK is defined by your kind of national insurance contribution. So everyone pays into a national insurance pot, and you this then entitles you to have benefits from that as and when you need it. Particularly the pension aspect, I guess, becomes important. For those of you that are going to become a sole trader and a freelancer, you will pay classes 2 and 4 of national insurance. So you'll pay that second one and the last one. The second one is standardized. So anyone that registers as a sole trader immediately gets, registered in for national insurance payments of £3.05 for every week you are available to work. So that is about If we do that based on the 46 weeks in the year, it's about 150 quid a year. So I guess the message there is when you register as self-employed with HMRC, you immediately know that, you know, in 12 months' time, you're going to get a bill for 150 quid, regardless of what you've earned. Nothing to do with what you've earned, you will definitely get that bill for 150 quid. Class 4 is based on your income, so it's like a means tested class of national insurance. So you'll pay 9% over £184 per week, or 9% over £9,556, you know, if we're working on an annual basis. So under that, you don't pay any additional national insurance. So if your freelance work, you know, you earn £7,000, you will just pay that 150 quid. If you earn, you know, over 9,568, you will pay an additional 9% just on the bit that's over that, and it's calculated at the end when you submit your self-assessment tax bill. You can claim an exemption from that 150 quid if you are making less than 6,500 profit per year. But as I said, this is your entitlement to state pension and sick pay. And, you know, if you claim that exemption on an ongoing basis, you might find you get to retirement age, which I think is now like 68 or something, and you may get less state pension than someone else because you have claimed exemptions and not paid into the national insurance pot for a couple of years running. So I guess the message is, you know, if you can afford it, probably keep up with those £150 a year. But if you really can't, then there is an exemption available. Class 1 is for employees. So for those of you that are going to register a limited company, you will recall that I said that when you register a limited company, you register a separate legal entity, and therefore you are an employee and you work for that company. So you will pay class 1 national insurance because you work for your own company. You also own that company, but you are an employee of the limited company that you've created. So you will need to register that company as an employer, set up a payroll, and actually you won't pay your tax and national insurance through self-assessment. You will pay yourself through a monthly payroll, the same as you would if you were employed by a company, and you will pay 12% over £184 per week. As the owner of the company and the employer, you will also pay 13.8% over £162 per week on behalf of your employees. Don't worry about this too much. I'm happy to explain this on an individual level, but the message here, I guess for most of you, you're going to be self-employed. You will pay class 2, class 4, 150 quid. You're definitely going to have to pay unless you want to claim an exemption. And then the additional money is all based on how much profit you make. Tax, second part of it. Everyone gets a personal allowance in the UK, so everyone can earn up to £12,570 and not pay tax. It's the same if you're self-employed. That does not mean that you don't register until you earn 12,570 quid. You still register. If you only, have £10,000 by the end of the year, then you pay zero tax. But you still need to declare what you've earned as a freelancer. So everyone can earn up to 12,570 and at 0%. Between 12,571 and 50,270, you pay 20% tax, and then there and after, the rates go up depending on your earnings, all the way up to 45%. And as a self-employed sole trader, you also get an additional £1,000 trading allowance. So again, you can earn up to £1,000 over that personal allowance at 0% as well. And I guess that's there to kind of stimulate new businesses starting and testing out their concepts. When you are a sole trader, you pay tax through the self-assessment system. Now, when you are registered as self-employed, so this is not for limited companies. I'm not going to do anything more in limited companies. So if anyone wants questions, ask me, because it is different, but I don't want to bombard you with too much information. So when you are self-employed as a sole trader, you need to think in tax years. So the tax year runs from the 6th of April to the 5th of April. So you need to think in these tax years in terms of your income. So if you register your business today, you registered your business in the 21-22 tax year, and therefore the tax year will end on the 6th of April or the 5th of April 2022. And then on, around the 10th of April, you will get a letter through to your home address and saying you need to do your self-assessment. And that will be for any income you've earned from today until the 5th of April 2022. You have until the 31st of October to send them back those figures by paper. And you have until the 31st of January 2023 to submit that online. So I register my business today. I earn money between now and April. I don't have to tell HMRC about that money I've earned until January 2023 if I don't want to. I can also tell them on the 6th of April and get it over and done with, but very rarely do people do that. I don't actually have to tell them until the 31st of January. I also don't have to pay the bill for the tax and national insurance until the 31st of January 2023. So after you've traded, that period, you have 9 months to then pay the bill that's due for that trading period. So all of this information I'm telling you now, often people come back and do a workshop on this because you might register your business today, but this isn't going to become an issue for you until you start getting your tax and national insurance demands, potentially for like another year. If you registered your business today, you've not got to deal with any of this stuff for 12 months. But it's great that you're in this position where you're preparing for that, or some of you might already be registered, and some of you might be here because your tax bill is due on Monday. That might be where some of you are here. So if that is, and if you need help, please contact me sooner rather than later, because if you are a minute past midnight on the 31st of January, it's an immediate £100 fine, and thereafter it goes up by £10 every day that you are late. And you can get in quite a lot of debt, and you can get in pretty serious trouble. So if anyone is in that position and is worried and needs help, please reach out to myself or the team. When Dan mentioned that kind of people get worried about this self-assessment process, and it's actually pretty simple in that when you submit your self-assessment, you fill in kind of basic details about you and your company, and what they're really asking for is the total amount of money that you have earned through that period, the deductions of the allowable expenses, so kind of all the things that all the expenses associated with the business, so stuff that you've spent on marketing or equipment or products, or insurance, all of the kind of allowable expenses associated with the business, and then what you've been left with at the end. They are the main figures that you need in order to do your self-assessment. And the tax that you are charged and the national insurance that you are charged is calculated on the profit. So it's calculated after you've taken away your expenses. It's not calculated on all the money that you've had come in. So it's calculated on what you've been left with at the end. So this example kind of brings it to life. I've tried to condense this a little bit. So this individual has earned £43,000. She has spent £8,000 on insurance, marketing, equipment, those types of things. So she is left with £35,000. Her class 2 national insurance, so she has to pay that 158 quid. Her class 4 national insurance is worked out on her profit. So she was left with £35,000. She only pays national insurance over the 9,568. So that is I think that might be wrong. Sorry, I'm just checking. 25,432. And then if you times that by the 9%, it's about £2,000, her national insurance. I think that figure there is wrong, but it is calculated on the 25,000. And then income tax wise, so she gets her personal allowance of 12,570. She also gets her £1,000 trading allowance, and we've also deducted what she's paid in terms of her class 2 and class 4 national insurance. And then because she's within that first bracket for tax, that basic rate tax, she would pay 20%. So based on this example, the total bill at the end of the year would be £6,085. You don't have to work out all of this stuff. So when you submit your figures, HMRC obviously just send these figures back for you. But this helps you obviously know what to expect and kind of have a bit of an understanding of what to expect at the end of the day. I can't see any of you, so I hope I haven't lost you at all. I will stop sharing in a minute. That is all I'm going to cover. And if you've even grasped a tiny bit of that, well done, because that is a huge amount of information. You know, it is overwhelming, but it can be really simple. And I think I got myself in loads of trouble with the tax and national insurance side. I actually got threatened to go to court and, you know, letters under my bed because I was 18 at the time and just had registered a company and didn't really know the consequences of that at all. And it all turned out right in the end. I didn't end up in prison. And, you know, actually this stuff is simple, but as a freelancer or entrepreneur, you do have to make it your job and your business to get yourself skilled up on this. Yes, you can pay an accountant, but you still have to sign that bit of paper to say that you're happy with the figures. So make sure you know what those figures relate to, and make sure, because ultimately it is you that is liable and responsible for the running of the company. Whilst you're a student at UEL, there is so much support available to you through your lecturers and also through our entrepreneurship team. You can access one-to-one support on any of these issues that have been raised, or marketing, or whatever that might be for your business. There are workshops which cover this tax and national insurance stuff in about 3 hours, if anyone loved it enough to get more involved. There is access to funding as well, and access to expert sessions. So there are some grants available for you to help you set yourself up. We also are launching a freelance marketplace called East London Talent, which will be a space where you can promote and sell your products and services. So you can set yourself up as an independent professional and promote your products and services to small to medium businesses and also members of the public as well. And you can get paid through that platform. And I'll send all of this through to Dan. But I'm going to stop sharing now, saved by the 1 minute to 4, 1 minute to 5. I couldn't see anyone. It's gradually got darker and darker in the room I'm in.
Yeah, that's right. I just so I don't know if anyone's got any questions or anything, or any any queries or anything on everyone's sad. I guess they can see themselves at the moment.
Yeah.
Thumbs up if you can see yourselves.
Most people look like they're still there, which is great.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Well, look, I think the sessions I think it's really, really useful, and it just puts it on the sort of the horizon, and gives you something to maybe an avenue to engage with if you do end up unsure and do end up going in that direction. But yeah, I just think all these things help demystify the kind of this landscape of kind of the business side of being a creative. So I remembered earlier today, I haven't done my self-assessment, so I need to go home and do that. And I've got a few days to knock that out. But it actually generally only takes a couple of hours once you get head around it. But I must admit, the first couple of times it's sort of daunting. It asks you lots of questions you don't really, you're like, how's this relevant? But exactly. But it's definitely, the processes have got better. So I guess I've also got better. But all right, well, we'll call it a day there. But thank Rebecca. So maybe you could in a virtual hand, and we'll give Rebecca a little bit of a clap. Oh, have you got a question?
Thanks everyone for sticking it out. It's not the most interesting subject.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks guys. And yeah, that obviously brings us to a close today for Detour Ahead on Wednesday. We've got some more talks starting at 10:30 tomorrow. So please join us live in the Lightwell. Obviously tomorrow's live, and then on Friday it will be all online. But yeah, please do come, and it's really great when there's a proper audience. So yeah, thanks Rebecca as well. And that's us done. Thank you.
Perfect. Bye.